Okay, graphing. So you're going to have something similar to this in the test where I don't give you a grid, so you're going to have to start from fresh. So first of all, if I just outlined this, how many x's would I get multiplied all together there? 5. So what do I know? I know the arrows are going to be traveling in that direction. That's what I know. Okay, so x to a 5, I know this about my end arrows. Okay, so let's talk about x-intercepts. Here we have a positive 1. Here is a negative 2. I'm going to write a little b there. What's that as my memo, do you think? Bouncing. I'm going to write a positive 3. And I'm going to put a little b again because it's going to bounce. Okay, and then my y-intercept. So what are you doing? You're making x 0. So what's the math? 0 minus 1. 0 plus 2 squared. 0 minus 3 squared. Okay, good practice without your calculator because on your exam you probably won't have a calculator on this question.
Wait, so why is the y 0?
A y-intercept is where x is 0, right? That's what I did there. Okay, how about if you overview it, would you say that's positive or negative result?
Positive.
Negative. And then we got a 4 there and a 9 there. So we are at negative 36. Okay, so what did I say at the start? My arrows are doing that. And we wrote down where we're bouncing, right? There was a bounce on that one and that one. We got to be bouncing there. So I'm going to draw this now. Bounce. It doesn't really matter to me where you've traveled down here. Okay? That's okay. Whatever. If yours looks different in this spot, we don't know. We don't know that until you get to calculus. Okay. So make sure you label, right? Because you have no numbers, so make sure you label. Okay. What degree?
Just 1, 1?
Well, I'm not going to probably write 36 tick marks there, so you probably just want to label that just as a, yeah. But if you wrote just the 1 and like not that, that's okay there for me. Okay, how many multipliers altogether here on the x? It's an x cubed at the end of it, but there's a negative. So what do you know about the arrows? You know the arrows will be traveling like that. Good? Okay, so arrow directions are important. Know that right away. And then x-intercepts. What is the x-intercept on this factor?
0.
0. And negative 3 with a bounce. And then what does the y-intercept come out to be?
0.
0. If your x-intercept is 0, your y-intercept is going to be 0, right? Okay, so what does that look like? 0 and -3. And then, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm just going to write my little arrow memo to myself. You see how I just did it lightly? I wanted an arrow there and I wanted an arrow there. And then we talked about a bounce on this one. So how would it look? So the arrow has to be that. We need to do a bounce. There you go. So obviously there's no, I don't need y value labels on this because I don't know any specific y values. Okay, graphicortic. So it's an X4, so I don't know what's going on, but I know it's either going to be a W or an M, right? Okay, it has roots at, it has a root at -3. It has a root at -3 and a root at 2. And it has a double root at 1. Okay, and then it doesn't really give me any other info. So I guess you can do whatever you want on this question. One person can draw an M and one person can draw a W and you both can be right. On a test, if it said more specific, then you would have to follow that, but it doesn't. So you can do whatever you want here. No, it has no info to give me anything more. So you just have to meet just this criteria.
Could we do x equals 0 or no?
So that could be a potential answer.
So you can't just go 3 times -2 times -1 squared.
You can put something there. That's fine. It still meets that criteria if you want. But there was no info about a coefficient and there was no info about a y-intercept. So that's all I can do.
X equals 0.
So,
So like if you wanted a y-intercept, you could just do x equals 0.
yeah, why don't we need the y-intercept?
Because, okay, so if I did this, my y-intercept would be what? -6. If I did this, it would be +6. Someone could have made their y-intercept -12 or 12
If you put a 2 in front.
if you put a 2 there or a -2 there, so there's various things. Okay, so you could have picked. Okay, so make an equation. Okay, so I have a negative 2. So x plus 2 is a factor with a bounce
Yeah.
and 1. So x minus 1 is a factor with a bounce. And I'm going to need a coefficient in the front. And you need to write y equals, right? Because I'm developing an equation. So how many of you are going to forget that? Y equals? Don't do that. Nico, you're going to watch this video and you're going to write y equals, right?
Nico's on a live video?
Well, I don't know when he's, I'm going to make him watch this.
Hi, Brownie.
And then you're going to remember it. Okay.
Tough L in pickleball today, Nico.
Y-intercept is negative 8. Okay, so right now, if I did a plug-in 0, what is all of this if you plug in 0 right now? 2 squared is 4 times 1. So this is 4. So what would I need to multiply to get a negative 8?
2.
Negative
Negative
2. And I also knew what from the original picture? How do you make an M? You need a negative, right? Okay, so this one, negative 1, so x plus 1. There is a bounce happening. Here's a positive 1, so x minus 1.
What about that one at 2?
I haven't got there yet. You're way ahead of me. 2, so I need x minus 2 with a bounce. Okay, y equals, what do you already know about this number? With this visual, what's going on with the arrows? It's going to be negative. I already know that. Okay, so let's plug in a 0 here. So we get what kind of number when you rip a 0 through all that? 1, negative 1, and 4. So you would get a negative 4. No, y-intercept is what? I would say that's hitting a 2.
This one we need Brownie. We would know. Yeah.
So what times the negative 4 would end up getting me a 2?
Negative a half.
Negative a half. Okay.
Wait, so why is it negative 4? Because it's not an x.
If there was no coefficient, you would have ended up at negative 4. But I'm going to put a coefficient to change that to a 2.
Do you have to put a coefficient?
Yes, because there is no y-intercept at negative 4.
Oh, I see, no, I see.
You're going to have to change the negative 4. If there was no coefficient, that would have been the y-intercept.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So what is the coefficient that changes it? Okay, so this tells me synthetic division. So please read the instructions. you have two things. You have the remainder theorem and you have synthetic division. Do you understand what the difference is? This is just plug in the root number. So you're just doing, plug it in, what's the value? That's all you're doing. And synthetic division is like that, right? With the root number, and then you do that process. This number and this number would be the same value though, but they're just different methods. So you have to read the instructions. So if I say, figure it out with remainder theorem, I better not see you doing a synthetic division. So plug in the root number or synthetic divide with the root number, okay? You will get to the same answer, but different methods. Okay, so this one says synthetic division. Okay, so give me the root number on the outside. So positive 1. You're going to write the coefficients. Is there any gaps? Cubed, squared, 1, none. So it's good. Look for gaps. Bring down. Times, add. Okay, keep that process going. Times, add, times, add. Okay, division statement is what it wanted. So this polynomial divided by that equals, and then what? How do you write this? So we had a cubic divided by an x. So this quotient will be a squared, right? Cube divided by an x is a squared result. And that's a remainder, so you write it like that. You have to write the full thing.
Really?
Because it says write a division statement.
So that's what it means by, is there a multiplication statement as well?
If I say a product of factors. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change the next question. Instead of writing a division statement, we're just going to go write the quotient. That's going to be my new question. Just write the quotient. Okay, so if I say write the division statement, the whole thing, this one, let's just say write the quotient. So what is different? Okay, synthetic divide. Root number is -3. Do you have any gaps? The order, do you have any gaps? Yes. You have a gap. We have no squareds. Okay, so now, if this was a 4th degree divided by an x, the quotient will be a cubic. Do you see how it will always drop? If this is a cubic, squared, an x, a number, or a remainder.
So for the quotient,
So if I say just write the quotient, you just write the end part of it, right? So write a division statement, write a quotient. That's all the difference is, okay? Okay, so now you can't synthetically divide. What's the remainder? So this one is using the remainder theorem. So what is the root number? What's the root number I'm using?
2.
Positive 2. So that's what you're doing. You're just plugging in the 2.
Would you say this one's quicker than synthetic if you have an option?
Some people are just really love synthetic, but this one should be quicker.
No! Thought I had that in my head. Man, I thought I had.
Let's see.
Wait, 6, isn't it 6 cubed?
No, it's 3 times 2 cubed. 2 cubed is 8, right?
Either way, I went wrong.
So you got to do your bed math with
I did 6
exponents.
squared anyways.
Okay, and again, look for that on an exam without a calculator, right? You can do that without a calculator. Okay, so that's all I wanted. I just said, what's the remainder? So you're done. Decide whether this would be factored or not. Okay, so it doesn't tell me a method, so I can pick. So first of all, what is the root number here?
-1.
-1. So what if you are a person who likes the remainder theorem? So if you are a person who likes the remainder theorem, you're doing that. If you're a person who likes doing synthetic division, you're doing that. Because there was no directions, you could have picked, but you need to answer. What do you think? Is this a yes or a no? Is this a factor of that? So you have to write no. What if I say why? Why is it not a factor? What are you going to say to me?
because doesn't remainder is 0.
The remainder is not 0. So why not? The remainder had to be 0. Okay, and you can go ahead on the next one. It's the exact same thing. So the root number is a 3. So you're either doing the plug-in 3 or synthetic division. Okay, with no directions, you pick which method you like. Okay, so again, remainder theorem, synthetic division. Those are the processes as the name. Okay, graph. Okay, before I start the whole process, here's a couple quick things I know. This is a cubic, so what's the arrow positioning? Cubic. Cubic. And what's this number going to do at the end here? That's going to be a y-intercept, right? Because if x is 0, 6. Okay, so those are some quick details. But now we're going to go into factoring. So you should start with a synthetic division. So I'm going to use a root number of 2. Are there any gaps?
No gaps.
No gaps. Do you understand that this should come out to 0 because it told me, right? It said it is a factor.
Oh,
You better get a 0 if it told you that, or else you did something wrong. It's good? Mine came out?
yep. Not good as well.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to start writing this as a product of factors. So far, if this is the dividing, then this times this is this, right? This divided by this is this, therefore this times this is this. Does that make sense if I say it like that? The original divided by that is the quotient, therefore the quotient times the factor is that. Okay, I think the next stage you do is by hand, right? That trinomial, just do it by hand.
Oh, so we actually have to graph this. Oh yeah, it says graph the function.
And we already gave ourselves those hints at the top. Cubic n, y-intercept was 6. We already told ourselves that. Make sure you put labels on your graph. Okay, next one. So what do I know quick? Cubic. So that tells me the arrow shape. 10. That's a y-intercept. And that is it. So what do I do to start? Because I don't have any information to start with. You do a test, yeah. So what kind of number do you want to start with?
1.
1. So what is 1 cubed? That's 2 times 1 squared.
I hope this is how it works on the test.
The first pick.
That's what I'm hoping.
It'll be probably within your first
I'm gonna
3 guesses for sure.
best.
Probably won't make you try more than 3 different things. A 1, a -1, 2, or a -2.
That's a stupid.
Okay, so now okay, so after that test, here's what I know. 1 is a root number or an x-intercept. X minus 1 is a factor. So now I can start synthetic division with a root number of 1. Everybody knows that has to come out to 0, right? Because you said it should. I really am noticing I didn't put any flattens on this, but there'll probably be a flatten somewhere on your test. So everybody knows how to draw your flattens.
Wait, so if you didn't know that was the y-intercept right away,
You could plug 0 in here, right?
I'll enter that.
So what do you get? -1 times 5 is -5. -5 times -2 is 10, right?
So you can just plug it in wherever. Then.
Yeah. So obviously my math is a lot faster plugging 0 into that versus 0 into that, but you'll get there. Okay, everybody's good with flattens though? Okay, so if you're hitting a flatten, I need to see more of that pattern, right? Because I just realized now there was no examples with that, but. Okay, so flattens, just kind of know what to do. Okay, so we have a dolphin jumping out of the water. So let's talk about variables. So what variable is along the x-axis when you have a height of a dolphin as it jumps through the water? T is seconds and h is feet. So what's going on with your x variable? That'll be time in seconds. And what is the vertical variable? H in feet. So you know what? I get a lot of deductions. T, yeah. I get a lot of deductions because people use X and Y on their test. I'm not using X and Y in the variables, so you need to change your variable language as well. So how long is the dolphin out of the water during its second jump? So do you see what the dolphin's doing? Dolphin's under the water. It hits the surface. It goes above. It dives down, and then it's out. So out of the water the second time. That's that. So how many seconds did the elapse happen? It was 2 seconds, because it was from 2 to 4 means you're out for 2 seconds. Okay, determine the equation. So you're going to write h equals, not y equals, I'm going to leave a spot for a coefficient. Okay, if you have an x-intercept at 0, what is the factor? Just x, but in this case it's a t. The next intercept is at 1. So the factor is t minus 1. There's no bouncing going on, I think, so that's good. 2. So t minus 2. And the 4. So t minus 4. And on this, I didn't give you a concrete point to figure out your actual A, because your y-intercept is 0, so that's not really going to help you. And I didn't give you any other points. But what do you know about the coefficient because of this shape? It's a negative number, so at least give me a negative value there so you understand the equation has to have a negative leader. Estimate max height. So this one actually gave me a scale up there. So if that's the top height, what's your judgment of that number on your scale? You can just estimate. I don't know. 3.75 feet. I don't know. I'm going to go with something like that. Okay, so that one is just kind of read the graph. Okay, last page. No, just kidding. 2 more pages. Okay, are you okay if I change this question? Are you okay if I change it? Make it a little harder? I'm going to change one of the sides to start with. Let's make it a little bit harder. Okay, so you're going to be folding up your box. Okay, can you visualize that? You cut the corners and then you fold it up. Okay, what is your height of your box when you fold it up? X. So what is this side of the box going to be over here? How do you represent just what's left here? This is gone, so what's this part? 8 minus 2x. Okay, represent a volume equation. Volume equals, in terms of x, the length times the width times the height. Graph this polynomial. So where are the x-intercepts of this? So what x number in this bracket causes a 0 to be happening? 6 subtract 2 times 3. 8 subtract 2 times 4. What's this one? 0. And it's a cubic, so then cubic, there's no balancing because they were all 3 separates. But let's talk about the domain of this. Okay, what do you think about this part of your graph? Can't exist, you can't have negative x side, you can't have negative volume. What about exactly on here?
Got it.
If you cut off, if x was 0, can you cut off 0 and fold your box? No, because you can't have a 0 height, because now you don't have a box. So you can't be on that. Then I'm good in this section. What about exactly on 3? Can you be there?
Yes.
No.
Come on.
You had a 50-50 chance. Why?
What did you just do wrong?
What happens if x is 3? What's going to happen to this side? 0. Can you have a box with a side of 0? No. Then guess what? Can't have anything else then, because you can't be more than 3 either, because the most you can take out of this side is just up to 3, but not 3. So what would you say is the domain? How would you write that? 0, 3, soft brackets. And estimate max volume. So I'm thinking here-ish. And so then what x value do you just want to try? If I want to guess here-ish, I want to pick an x value of 1.5. Sure. It's an estimate, so you pick an x value of 1.5. And then I guess I probably would have a calculator for that one. And you gotta give me something on the end of it because it tells me a volume, so I should put some kind of unit on there.
I didn't get it right.
Cube.
Centimeters cubed. Volume. Okay, I would say very similar, very, very similar to a test question. Make sure you understand that domain part, like why is that domain happening? Okay, hey, quickly tell me, what's the shape, what's the y-intercept? Maybe you can just do that quick. We have a shape. We have a y-intercept. Just before I even start anything, those are just two things I can do in 1 second. Okay, we have a 0 at 1 hour. So like that's an x-intercept, right? X-intercept is 1. A factor is x minus 1, like that kind of idea. Except for we're not going to use x's. Which letter should I use instead of an x? H. Okay, let's determine the polynomial. I should have wrote in factored form here. Okay, root number 1. Divide. There's no gaps, right? Do you like my letters? I'm using a T and I'm using an H.
Do dot marks.
Yep.
Said if we do
If you do a Y and an X, I will, yeah. Because I'll just do like that 0.1 that I do, but just so that you remember, because on an exam you lose a half point with your lettering. Okay, that was good. And then can you finish the hand factoring? Okay, so on the next step, I'm a visual person, so I'm just going to graph this out.
Looks a little crooked.
My graph? What? There, I'll just turn my page crooked. Okay, so there's all my h-intercepts, my x-intercepts. Remember, we picked a cubic shape. We had that -12 there, right? Okay, so this visual kind of is helping me to see where is the max temperature within the first 4 hours. So FYI, you're not allowed to look at that, and you're not even allowed to look at that either, right? Because you can't have negative time, and it says in the first 4 hours, so you have to stop there. Okay, so where would you see a max? Here-ish? So then, what kind of number do you want to use as your plug-in estimate? I'm going to use 2. You can also plug that in up here, you know that? You can plug the 2 in here if you wanted as well. It's gonna be the same thing. What is it, Celsius? Yep. Okay, it's an estimate. Okay, so I've also had this on the test where people have done all this and then they got a negative. Do you understand that doesn't even make sense to your graph, why you're getting a negative number, right?